Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video we're just going to pick up from where we left off in the last video. So let's say that we want to give each person a savings account. And let's say that each person has some amount of money. Person money. Or we can just say money. Okay, we're going to store the money inside of a double. At the end of this video, we're going to go over why storing any kind of currency inside of an object is a very bad idea. But for now, let's just store it inside of a double just for the sake of example. And we're going to go inside of here again. And let's say that inside of our persons array, or actually let me make this even more simple. I'm going to comment this out, and let's comment this guy out too. And let's say that person 1 had an especially good day today. We're going to give them $100. And give, we'll even give person 2, we'll set their money equal to 5. Okay, cool. So again, we're using the dot syntax. We're fetching the block of memory that holds person 1, or at least person's 1 data. And then we're fetching its money variable, and then we're setting its value to 100. So now we can print out person1.money, and we should see 100.0. Okay, fair enough. And we could do the same thing for person 2, and we would see a value of 5. Now, suppose that we wanted to add $5 to persons. Let's just say that we wanted to award each person $5 at the end of each day. Well, okay, the way we could do that is pretty simple, right? We can just do person1.money plus equal 5, and we can even do person2.money plus equal 5. And, we can change this constant around, and we could play around with it. But suppose you were designing this object so that you wanted to do some checking before you could actually, give the person some money. So let's say that when you construct the person object, you also have to pass in a password. So you have to pass in this password. And this password is for the person's own protection. Basically, you don't want anyone having access to, or you don't want anyone to see how much money you have unless they know your password. So we'll create our password variable up here, and then we'll say, let me just call this password is equal to pass. And let's say that the password for this one is just going to be pass1. We're not going to be too strict about providing good passwords here. So password parameter needs to be before the age parameter, which is by changing it around right now. Age 2. Okay. So now, let's say that you want to add on $5 to the user's account. But you want to make it so that you can't just add on $5. In order to set the money, in order to even do this, in order to assign the value to the person's bank account, you need to provide a password. Well, okay, we can do something with a function, right? So we can do public void add, we can even do just set money into new, or double new amount. And then we could do money is equal to new amount. And then we could even go back here, let's just get rid of these 2 lines. And we could say person1.set money 100, and then we could do person2.set money 5. And we could print it out, and we would get 100. Okay, but this still, okay, actually one thing to note before we go into the security vulnerabilities. Notice what we're doing. We're actually calling a function on an object. So just as we can call variables, or we can fetch the values of variables outside of our object using this dot syntax, so too are we allowed to access functions that are inside of each object. Okay, so let me say that again. We can access variables using the dot syntax, right? So we can access this username, and we can access this password, and user age, money. We can access all of those using the dot syntax, but we can also access functions. So imagine functions kind of like variables. We can actually fetch each function, and then we can call it. We can provide a value, and it can do all kinds of stuff, but we don't actually have to see whatever is going inside, right? We can just call this function. Okay, so now back to our main concern, which was about security. We don't want someone to be able to modify, like the person's won money without passing in some kind of password, right? Because right now I can just still do this, money is equal to 200, right? Or I can even take out a bunch of money by sending the money to -1, right? So this is obviously not secure. Well, maybe we could do something like this. Maybe each time we want to set the money, we have to provide a password. And if the provided password is equal to the password we have up here for the person, only then do we set the money. Otherwise, else system.out.println your password is incorrect. Alright, so we're making progress, right? So now what'll happen? Now we actually have to pass in a password. So let's say that we pass in pass1 this here, and then we pass 3, or maybe like incorrect pass. So now if we do this, let's see here, where did we mess up? So persons2's password is pass2. We go inside here. And then if password, so notice what's going on here. Well, we have this password variable right here, but then our global or our instance variable, that's kind of like the variable. That's what we call the variables up here inside of our object or inside of our class. These are instance variables. It's named the same thing as this password right here. But it turns out that whenever we're working in Java, whenever we're working in Java and we have two variables that have the same name, normally we can't have that. So we can't do something like this. P is equal to 2 and then string P is equal to 3. We're not allowed to redeclare the type that P is, right? We declared that P is a string once, so we can't really say that, it's now suddenly something else, maybe like an int or something. But in this case, we are allowed to do this because this kind of parameter could have any value or it could have any name. It doesn't really matter what name you have, so long as it just it just really doesn't matter what name you have. All that matters is that you're providing some kind of parameter, and in our case, it turns out that the parameter has the same name as the instance variable. So to fix this, it's really easy. We can just change the name of the parameter. So now notice how the highlighting turned to blue, indicating that we're actually looking at the instance variable called password. Okay, so now if we were to run this, we'll see that our password is incorrect for this guy right here. Persons2's password is pass2, but we're passing in this value of incorrect pass. Okay, fine, but again, we still have this problem that we can just do this, right? We can assign the person's money willy-nilly. It doesn't really matter. There's no security. It's a pretty big flaw. Okay, so how do we deal with this? We deal with it using something called encapsulation. So encapsulation, you can think about it as, imagine that you have a black box, and what you do is you put in something into the black box, and then you wait a couple of seconds, and then the black box, it spits something out. So you don't know what happened inside of the black box. All you know is that you get some kind of result out. So you might pass in, I don't know, like a pencil, and then outside of the black box, after the box is done processing what the pencil, it might come out with a lump of wood. So you don't know how the box got to the lump of wood. It might have crushed it. It might have, maybe like melted it and cooled it or something, right? You don't know what's going inside of the box. All you know is that you're ending up with a lump of wood. So similarly, we want to kind of follow this principle of the black box, you can say. We're going to hide these variables. So we're going to make it so that anyone outside can't see the value of username or password or user age or money, right? When we do that using something called we're going to use something called, we do it by prefixing the variables with this private kind of like name. So whenever we add private before each variable, we make it so that outside stuff outside of this class can't see the value of these variables. So now if we go here, right, it turns out we're actually going to get a compiler error. It says the field person.money is not visible. So now we're not even allowed to see what the value of the person's money is, but we are allowed to call this function. this function note is declared public. So there are three types of things. You have private, you have public, and you have protected. For now, don't worry about protected. Let's just look at private and public. If something is public, then stuff outside of the class can access it. If something is private, then only things inside of the class can access it. So inside of this class, we're able to access username, password, age, and money all we want. But outside of this class, we're not allowed to do so. Inside of this class, we're able to call set money anytime we want because it's public. It could be, and if it was private, we could still call it anytime we want. And indeed, because it's public, we're able to call it outside of the class too. Okay. Now this makes it better because now we can't just set the person's money. We can't do this anymore. Money is equal to 30 because we don't have access to the money variable. Okay, fine, but now we've created another problem for ourselves. Because we can't see the value of money, now we can't print it out anyway. Well, we can just create a new public method, public double get money, return money. So these types of methods where you're setting and you're getting a value, these are called setters and getters, and you're gonna run into them a lot. They're basically it's a good habit to get into doing encapsulation because you might run into scenarios like this where whenever maybe like a client wants to set some kind of value on a variable, you have to do some kind of check before they're allowed to do so. So now let's go here, let's run, and let's see here, right, because we passed in an incorrect password, we're going to get your password is incorrect, and then we're printing out the person one's money. And now everything is much better because we're not able to access these variables directly. Okay guys, I know that was a lot to take in, but watch this video again, go through some practice problems. It's a little confusing when you first go through this, but it'll start to make sense, after you've written a couple of programs yourself and seen how to work with it. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.